Hi there, and welcome to the HR Podcast. This is Linda Misegadis
and Cyndi Manuel, and we'll be your co-hosts. After spending years working in and with HR, we thought, why not start a podcast to support the important HR community? We believe the way things have always been done isn't necessarily what's going to work in the future. So we're diving into topics that support HR and working women as they navigate the future of work. We're talking about professional growth and also how we can support each other as human beings.
We can't wait to bring you insights from HR experts, thought leaders, and inspiring women who are making a real difference in their organization and communities. They'll share their journeys and tips on balancing work and life in a better way. We're excited to learn alongside you and hope you'll pick up some great takeaways from tips and tricks to worksheets that you can actually use in your daily life. So grab your favorite beverage
or lace up your walking shoes and join us for the HR Her Resources podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Her Resources podcast. I am so excited to see my co-host Cyndi Manuel. How are you?
I am so excited to be here today with Christine. We've been really looking forward to having her on the show, so this is going to be a good one.
I think so too. I'm excited about this one, and always good to have a chance to connect with my friend Christine. So let me tell you a little bit about who Christine is. She is the president and CEO of Step Up Consulting, an IT consulting firm in the greater Los Angeles, California area. Since founding the company in 2018, Christine has grown Step Up into a national consulting firm specializing in implementing cloud-based human capital management software for retail, healthcare, government, and education sectors. Her leadership has enabled clients to automate critical business processes and significantly reduce operating costs. Christine's dedication to diversity, equity, and inclusion is reflected in her commitment to empowering women and minorities in business. She actively supports various charitable organizations in the U.S. and her home country, India, and has pledged 10% of Step Up Foods' net revenue to philanthropic endeavors focused on empowering underprivileged women and girls. Balancing her professional endeavors with her personal life, Christine enjoys spending time with her family, including 2 high school-aged children, a husband, father-in-law, cut that part out, Logan, father-in-law, and their dog, Waffles. Their hobbies include reading, cooking, gardening, traveling to new countries. Christine's multifaceted career and commitment to innovation and empowerment make her a prominent figure in both the technology, consulting, and culinary industries. Welcome to the studios, Christine.
Thank you, Linda, and thank you, Cyndi. I've been very excited about meeting you all. This has been the highlight of my week. So thank you.
Cyndi, we always talk about that, like filling our cup when we have these episodes. So yeah,
it's so joyful, like so much more fun than we even thought it would be. So great to pull you into this fun with us, Christine.
Yeah. Well, thank you, because I've enjoyed watching. I think I've caught almost every episode. And I really enjoy it. It's like, my downtime, sometime during the week in the evening, I'm like, there's a new podcast out. So I was excited when you all reached out to me, and I welcome the opportunity.
Well, we're glad to have you here. And this is a really important topic. We're going to talk about the power of representation for women and minority leadership in HR consulting, and really just in leadership in general. And just a couple key statistics to kind of start things off. Women hold less than 1/3 of management roles globally, with only 29% in 2023, up slightly from 27.6 in 2022. The percentage of companies prioritizing gender diversity has increased from 88% in 2017 decreased, from 88% in 2017 to 78% in 2024. And it'll be interesting to see what we continue to see as the changes across the country are happening. There are 22% more men than women participating in leadership development programs, with 40% more men being informally assessed for such roles. And I know even for me, I had the opportunity to go to the Berkeley Executive Leadership Program, and I think I was maybe one of 2 women. Everyone else, they were all men, and so it's just still very indicative of what we're seeing in leadership roles today. So, so it's really fascinating. But we are excited to have Christine here and talk a little bit about what she has done and, really what her focus has been across the board. So, Christine, can you give everybody like a little bit of your journey? Like, how did you get here in the first place? And why this?
Sure. Thank you, Linda. So, my career in IT project management began when I immigrated to the US because my education lies in hospitality management. And one thing led to the other. I came here. You take what's available, and I realized I really enjoyed it. And I studied and took courses and built upon my experience. Worked with couple of fantastic organizations. Learned a lot along the way. Developed my network. And I did well in my career. Started out as an IT project manager, and then moved up the ranks. Into practice management and being a director and leading large and global teams. And through it all, I knew that I wanted to branch out and do something on my own. I think it just ran in the gene pool because my grandmother used to she was a home cook. Necessity. I mean, she needed the finances, and one thing led to the other, and she just used the one skill she had and she capitalized on it. And my mother was a teacher by profession. And then she had the entrepreneurial gene, which I think, she learned from her mother. And she ran a very successful Montessori school business back in Mumbai in India. And I grew up with both of these extremely strong women. Um, I grew up with both of these extremely strong women, learning from them because growing up, I spent a lot of time with my grandma as well. And, I just learned simple traits of, how they established their business, financial acumen, time management, networking. I mean, back in those days, there wasn't the internet, but, how they marketed their services. And I actually, as far as my mom's business went, I used to help on my days off from school, right when I was like 10 years old. So I think that's where it all just, it all just started. And when I celebrated my milestone, when I turned 40, I knew. I was like, you know what, it's now or never. I've got to do this. So that's what led me to establishing Step Up Consulting in a very small way. I'm a low risk taker. So I started with just a couple of consultants and a project manager and myself. And I honestly, over the years in my career in IT project management, I saw what was being done well. I saw what was not being done so well. And those were the lessons that I put into practice when I established Step Up. And one thing's led to the other, knock on wood. It's been great. We have a workforce of 26 consultants and project managers today. And we partner with UKG, that was formerly Kronos, who are leaders in the HCM space. And we are an implementation partner with them for their Workforce Ready platform.
That's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that story.
Such a great story. And it's always it's always funny to me. Strong women come from strong women,
I was just thinking that. Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about my own mom, and she's such a role model in my life as well. So I resonate a lot with what you're talking about, Christine. I love that.
Yeah. I think I think you're so right, Cyndi, because I saw my grandmom and more so my mom, because I helped her out then. I saw them fail and get up, and then learn from their mistakes. And I think that's what really, I mean, unknowingly, That's what I imbibe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And today, when I see, the practices that I put in place for my business, I'm like, I mean, that this looks
Strangely
familiar from many,
familiar.
many
Yes.
years ago.
Yeah. Exactly. No, it is
Mom
so
would be
true.
proud. Yes.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that it hasn't been without some challenges along the way, especially not just as a woman, but also a minority business owner. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges and even some of the triumphs that you've faced as you've, really kind of built your path along the way?
I did. You know, Honestly, in my career, I learned how to run a good practice. I learned how to be a good people manager. But as you all can imagine, running your own business is a whole different ball game
Yeah.
because you have to learn about the setup of the business, the paperwork, and again, because I didn't grow up or study here, that was more of a learning curve for me.
Oh, sure.
So just doing all the paperwork, setting up the business, learning the financial aspects of establishing and running a business, and then the accounting, and then marketing
Right.
and business networking. How do you bring in the business, and then how do you attract talent? Here I
Yeah.
was, first time business owner, and I'm looking for you know consultants who are tenured and who are experienced, and how would I convince them that, hey, join this new startup? So,
Right.
And
Yes.
they're representing you too, Christine. So they have to kind of align also with the values of Step Up. And,
Mhm.
there's, as you're talking, I'm like, there's so many hats that you wear when
Yeah.
you're starting your own business. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, because honestly, when you're starting a small business, you're running finance and accounting and sales and marketing and business development and customer relations and HR
Yes.
and
Right.
hiring. So I mean,
Yeah.
you especially in an instance like mine where I worked with these large global organizations, and everything
Mhm.
was so structured. And now, I mean, hey, if my laptop dies, or if I'm having
Yeah.
an issue with downloading an app on my machine, it's me. I have to take the
Right.
equipment.
Yes. Yeah, there's no ServiceNow ticket to the
No,
IT department. Yeah.
there you go. So,
Right.
that kind of stuff, I think the initial year was definitely a learning curve.
Yeah.
Lots of long hours. I would say what helped me along the way was you you learn a lot from reading, from learning from others' experiences,
Yeah.
and from having a trusted network.
Yes.
That is
Huge.
what I did. I built upon the network that I had developed from so many
Yeah.
decades of working in the industry, and I reached out. In a way, you've got to kind of like be shameless, honestly,
You
because
do.
there you
Yes.
are. You're setting up your business, so there was no embarrassment. I'd reach out and I'd be like, I need help with this,
Mhm.
or I'd request for time. Just pick their brain on
Yeah.
how I can make it better. Roll up my sleeves, work with my team to learn the product, learn the platform. So yes, I mean, I'd say give up the first 2 years of your life if you
Mm.
want your business to be successful.
Yeah.
Those initial couple years were all about, it was work, and then home and the kids, and then back to
Mhm.
work, late
Yeah.
nights, and then early mornings again, and weekends. And but
Absolutely.
it pays off.
Yeah.
Hard work um, and the foresight. I think just planning 10 steps ahead.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
Having, for example, one very good piece of advice that I got from one of my mentors whom I worked with early on, who was a successful business person, was you need to have 6 to 12 months of finance available to you.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah.
know,
Makes a lot
So,
of sense.
envision all of the overruns that may occur in your business and be prepared for when those may hit.
Great advice. Yeah.
So that was, I think, one of the best pieces of advice I got as I set up the business.
Yeah.
The second piece was accounting, just staying on top of accounts receivable,
Right.
because, even the small invoices, I mean, if especially, customers tend to give small businesses a run
Yes. Yeah.
for payments.
Right.
And if you have a few payments that end up getting delayed, you could collapse. Your business could collapse.
That is so true.
And other people are relying on you, especially now, Christine. I don't know how you feel about it, but I always feel like there's other people and their families who are relying on how well things go. So I can only imagine for you with, 26.
That, Cyndi, honestly is something that sometimes keeps me up at night, and it keeps me going, because now it's, when you're working, it's about, well, how do I, do well in my career to keep growing and have job security. But when you start a business, for us at Step Up, the folks who work with us are family.
Yeah.
And they have families.
Right.
And now you realize that this business sustains not just your family, but so many other families. So every decision that you take could in turn impact so many others.
I agree.
And that is what it keeps you honest. And it kind of gives you that purpose when you're, when you're driving towards those decisions as well.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Well, and you take a unique, I'm sorry, Cyndi, you take a unique hiring approach. Can you talk a little bit about how you focused in on the people that you hire in the organization? Because you're kind of providing a gift a little bit, in my opinion, in the industry. So can you talk about your hiring practices?
Sure. Thank you, Linda. That's very kind of you to say that. When I first started out, I did bring on some experienced and tenured consultants.
Sure.
Which definitely helped in establishing the practice. But what I also learned from my years of running an IT services practice is, the longer consultants stay in the business, they tend to become more set in their ways. And the platform that we support at Step Up, which is UKG Ready, is more geared for small and medium businesses. It uses cutting edge technology. There's a lot of new features and functionality that keeps getting rolled out into the product. And what really would help is having people on your team who are willing to learn, who are willing to experiment, and who are willing to take those chances. Try something, it may not work. Try something else. Okay, this works. Right. Instead of, being more towards, I want to be on that tried and tested path. Right. So that's where I learned that very quickly in the first year. And that's when I changed our hiring strategy to bring on people with experience from the industry, but varied experience in terms of ages, in terms of gender. I mean, we have a very diverse workforce pool, and I think that has worked wonderfully for us. I think that's actually the cornerstone of the success at Step Up, because we've had one of our consultants who was a grandfather. He was in his late 50s, and and then we have folks who are out of college, or they're in their their early 20s. And it's been wonderful to see what each one brings to the table, because one brings experience, and this attitude of been there, done that. So hey, throw anything my way and I'll be able to deal with it. The other one brings, I want to learn. I want to push the envelope.
Yeah.
I want to keep experimenting until I find a solution.
Right.
And what I realized is when you blend both of those together, it was magic because, now we get the best of both.
Yeah. I
Awesome.
like that.
So that was, that has been a strategy that has worked really well with our hiring. We also are able to still afford, unlike a lot of businesses where people are now going back into the office, we've been able to successfully work virtually.
That's great.
And we've been, able to deliver very successfully despite working virtually. So what we've been able to do there is there are, a lot of our workforce are women or, mothers who are rejoining the workforce, who may have taken a break. They may have worked in technology or in HR, but they had to take a break, go start a family. Kids are now in school. So what we realized is this particular genre of employees that we have, they have time management skills. They're excellent at multitasking, which really helps in the consulting space. They're very creative and out of the box thinkers. Because that's what they do in their daily life. They juggle, they think out of the box. Hey, I remember when my kids were little, my daughter stuffed a cherry stone up her nose, and I was on a very important call for a multi. And I worked on that and managed to do my call. So something like that teaches you. So
transferable skill. Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely. I love that, Christine.
Yeah.
That's
awesome. So yes, Linda, to answer your question, we've gone against the grain. But it has worked out really well.
I love
that.
And yes.
Yeah.
Do you you have had several years of success, and I'm so excited to hear about all of it too, Christine. So something like what you're just describing, the people that you're hiring and really kind of looking beyond what they bring to the table, but what their transferable skills are and what potential they have. Do you just tend to listen to your gut, Christine? Do you have somebody that you talk to? Because entrepreneurialism can be lonely. So, do you, outside of your community, do you kind of have someone who's your sounding board for things? And how does that kind of work for you?
Sure. I do actually. One of the things is we hire, we have a diverse hiring pool. But we have a certain culture that we've developed at Step Up. So, those are, even in the diverse pool of candidates who may apply, we look for those cultural traits where we know that person would be a fit, would be, Step Up would be successful for that employee, and that employee in turn would be successful for Step Up. So it's a win-win situation. That's what we look for. The person has to be a cultural fit. Step Up is also a partnership. My husband Praneeth Panga is a partner, and he assists with the more back of the house functions. And he has a long and stellar career in corporate America. In corporate finance and deal structuring. And so, I have this wealth of knowledge and I have free reign and free access to it. So I use it when I need to.
That's right. Why pay for it when you've got it right next door?
Right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And besides that, I do have a few mentors, people who have been my guiding forces in my career, and personally as well. I think one of my traits is, the people whom I value in life, I like to keep that connection. I like to maintain that relationship. So, some of my mentors are people I I worked with or collaborated with back in my teens or through my college years or through my career in my 20s, and they still, they're still my sounding boards, which I think has been extremely helpful for me because they've seen Step Up when it was growing. So, they're aware of the growing pains, and that sort of longevity helps when we have our conversations. So
Absolutely.
I try and connect with those folks at least once a quarter or twice a year, if not more often.
Yeah,
That's
great.
awesome.
We have an episode coming up with Dr. Angela, and she talks about her. Or no, this was with Wendy. Wendy was talking about having her personal board of directors. So like this kind of like this group of people that she leverages for different reasons to help her in different situations. So you might have this person who is just brutally honest with you, and in that moment, that's what you need is that brutal honesty. And then you've got that other person who's your cheerleader, who it doesn't matter what they're gonna give you the attaboys that you're kind of looking for at that. And so important to surround yourself
Your
with
inner circle.
people.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that though.
Absolutely.
The directors. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
I do too.
And I think also, technology. I mean, today, Step Up is a certified minority-owned and women-owned business.
Right.
So, we make sure to attend there are in-person gatherings, there are virtual meetups that we bank, and the other organization offers. So I make sure to leverage and take advantage of those.
Absolutely.
LinkedIn's a great tool. There are so many courses offered on there. There are focus groups,
Right.
leadership focus groups, mentor groups. So those are tools that have been invaluable.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Those
no,
are
it's
great
so important,
resources.
especially when you go into business on your own. Both you and Cyndi have, in that entrepreneurial world. And
At the Delta Principle, we are transforming the way you experience change. Have you ever experienced an organizational change where your employees pushed back because it was too much, too fast, or they just didn't understand why they couldn't do things the way they've always done them? What about where communication was non-existent or unorganized, with important updates getting lost in the shuffle, leaving people confused? And have you ever experienced change where morale was at an all-time low because the change felt overwhelming and not aligned with your organization's culture? If you are being asked to lead an important organizational change, especially if you're new to leading change, or if you're just feeling overwhelmed, the Delta Principle is here to support you. We work closely with you as a trusted partner, co-creating real-world solutions to address your unique challenges, and we equip you and your organization for future success. Are you gearing up for your next transformation journey or exploring ways to strengthen your change management skills? Then let's connect. This year, we're thrilled to introduce Leading Change, a training designed for leaders driving organizational initiatives, and Navigating Change, a training tailored to empower teams and adapting to change with confidence. Our coaching and training sessions are fully customizable to meet your organization's unique needs. Reach out today to see how we can partner with you to make your next change a success. You can find us on LinkedIn or by emailing us at info@thedeltaprinciple.com.
I'm curious because in the world of consulting specifically, your reputation and your credibility in the market is really important because, people talk, and especially with consulting firms, and I think even more so with small businesses. And so I'm curious, like, what are some of the lessons that you've learned to kind of help ensure that you're maintaining that credibility in the market, and how are you ensuring that you're doing everything that you can to maintain that positive, reception, I guess, in the marketplace today?
Um, I mean, our business is technology, Linda and Cyndi, but I think at the heart of any business, irrespective of, what cutting edge technology you use,
Mhm.
it's people.
Right. Right.
You know, people
Yeah.
will, they'll forget the beautiful product you put together for them.
Yeah.
But what you'd leave with them at the end of it is how you made them feel. Did they
Absolutely.
feel
Yeah.
did they feel heard? Did they feel like their inputs were taken into consideration?
Right.
And that's something which we listen carefully and we leverage a lot on our team at Step Up, is just keeping your ear to the ground.
Mhm.
For example, we make sure our project managers try and attend every consulting meeting.
Okay.
So it's on one hand, it's support for our consultants. On
Mhm.
the other hand, the project manager is there listening to what is not being said,
Yes.
Sure.
especially in a
Yeah.
virtual meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did the customer say something that maybe the consultant did not pick up on? Is there friction, especially during, the requirements gathering or the testing phase, that maybe the project team is not in sync on, and our
Mhm.
project manager picks up on it. So I
Yeah.
think that has, really helped, is the unspoken. So
Yeah.
we look for those. We keep in touch with our, the project team, the project lead, the project sponsor on a regular basis. Just a quick check in: how are things
Yeah.
going? How could we make this better for you? What is
Mhm.
the feedback that your team may or may not be giving you?
Right.
Yeah.
Or,
Right.
here's
Yeah.
some feedback we have, which we think will make your project better.
Yeah.
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 It's that
So,
consultative approach.
Mhm.
Part of the
yes.
reason you're there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
I
a
like
big
that.
believer in that too,
Yeah,
Christine.
Mhm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, and listening, I think, it's such an underrated skill, is the ability to listen to
Yeah.
what your clients are saying, what your team is saying, because we all know that there's two sides and then there's the truth, right? And so it's always challenging to kind of figure that out. But when you listen, you can usually kind of sort through all the white noise and kind of come to, okay, this is what I think is really going on here, and then come up with a path forward. So,
Yeah. You have two
yeah,
ears and one mouth. You should
that's right.
be listening twice as much as
Yeah,
you're. Yeah. There's
I
so
totally
much.
Absolutely.
agree. No,
Yeah, and Linda, you're in the technology business as well. As you
yeah,
know, um, we cannot meet every requirement that customers have.
no,
Especially in the human capital management space.
right.
Especially if you're working with government
Yeah,
or healthcare. Requirements are extremely complex.
they are. Yeah,
But you know what what we can circumvent by maybe the product not meeting the exact requirement is listening to the customer,
right.
and assuring them that I'm by your side, I'm
Yeah,
on your team, and I will give you the best possible solution that I can.
absolutely. Yeah,
you
no,
know
I think
and
that's really key.
what we've realized is, customers start out with, we want exactly this, but when they realize that they are being heard and you're making your best and honest effort, they're
Mhm.
willing to meet you halfway as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
agree.
And that's all
Yep,
it takes.
I think so. I think that
I
makes a
always
big
Yeah.
difference.
think too that, each customer, they shouldn't worry that you have other customers, right? They should feel
I
like they're
agree,
the
yeah.
only customer and
Yes.
focused on them. Back to what you were saying, Christine, I'm really hearing what they
Mhm.
are needing and saying, and you start to build that trust with them so that for those times you do have to say, what you're asking for can't be delivered, but here's what will be delivered. Here's how it will support you. Here's how it's going to align with your business needs. All of those kinds of things. So
Yeah,
Yes.
they
totally
have that
I think
relationship.
just feeling heard,
Yeah.
in And I think in any business or even in a personal circumstance, we may not be
Relationship.
able to provide the solution every time, but just being heard makes a difference.
Oh gosh, yeah. No, so true. I'm curious, Christine, what is your perspective, both as a woman, a minority, and immigrant, about the importance of diversity in leadership?
I believe diversity in leadership is very beneficial, irrespective of the size of the organization
Yeah.
or the business they might be in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Diversity can only help
Yeah.
because, number one, you're bringing different perspectives into the conversation,
Yes.
different perspectives into your business strategy.
Mm-hmm.
If you lack diversity, everyone's thinking the same way. Everyone's going to try and drive to one solution. You've
Yeah.
just lost out on, how much more you could be attaining by getting those diverse opinions
Right.
from
Yeah.
your
No.
leadership team.
Yep.
So I have seen, for when I worked with UKG before
Uh-huh.
I established Step Up, and now we partner with them. But the diverse leadership, for example, at UKG, um, just helped so much in brainstorming,
Mm-hmm.
driving to solutions, helping even with customer outreach. Because,
Right. Yeah.
if your business is not focused on just one market or one genre,
Right.
and for example, now in the consulting business, we are working with customers across the US.
Right. Yeah.
The north, the south, the east, the west.
Yeah.
We worked with small rural schools,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have worked with leading IT organizations. And now again, that's a diverse pool. So if we have diversity when we go into those discussions, it just helps
Right.
so much more.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for sure. When in what you're seeing across right now in your consulting, like how do you help organizations who are maybe struggling to bring, diversity into their organizations, and thinking about, especially in the world of human capital, because there's just such a benefit of thinking about that, and not from a marketing perspective, but from a, we need to bring diversity of thought, diversity of skills. Talk a little bit about what you see out there in the industry.
Linda, the first thing that comes to mind when you ask that is with public sector, with
Mm-hmm.
with government, because we're seeing that there's a lot of aging workforce
Right. Yeah.
within public sector. I know, there's this fear. A lot of people are retiring,
Yes.
and there are going to be a lot of jobs to fill. What I have seen be very successful is organizations who bring their retired workforce back
I like
as
that.
as
Yeah. Mhm.
contractors or
Yeah.
consultants. And we've seen those IT initiatives and those projects
Mm-hmm.
just go that much more successfully, because they've brought this person back who has decades of experience within the organization, who is able to pull out historical information that the current workforce may not have access to, or not even maybe aware about.
Right. Yeah, that is so
So I,
true.
I think that out of the box approach has really helped,
Yeah.
with especially with public sector. And then with the private sector, with the kind of projects that we work on, we have seen a lot of success when they have brought in subject matter experts from the outside,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
to specifically help with their teams.
Sure.
And we have seen those projects, where instead of just using, your HR and your IT
Mm-hmm.
workforce, but now you bring in some outside expertise. It's a fantastic return on your investment.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, for sure. Well, and I think, Cyndi, you probably see this as well in the work that you're doing and just kind of thinking about that. When you think about diversity of thought, it is around, bringing in people of different, whether it's women, men, or young, old, it all these different perspectives that really you can bring in and that can help you look at things differently. And sometimes we underestimate kind of like learning from the past to help us in the decisions that we're making today, and not from a well, we always did it that way, or, well, we tried it and it didn't work. It's more of a, well, these are the things that we did. These are the lessons that we learned. And then how can we apply that to, because sometimes it's all about timing too. Something that didn't work in the past didn't work for various reasons, but maybe it worked today. So yeah.
Yeah. And I love what you said about just the diversity of thought as well. And I do think where you come from, like you talked about your grandmother and your mom,
Yeah.
Where people came from in their history, the diversity in backgrounds, the diversity of experiences, people bring that to the table, whether you think you do or not, you bring that to the table. And it just makes it such there's so many more opportunities when you've got that diversity.
Absolutely. And also, something that I learned from my mom and my grandmother was they just never gave up.
Yes. Yeah.
They failed
Yeah.
in their respective endeavors. They were failures, but they just never gave up.
Yeah.
And I saw that,
Resilient.
for example, with my mother, she had this huge financial setback in her business. And I remember her, sitting on the floor and bawling her eyes out that night. But she, next morning she was like, well, this is what I'm going to do. She sold her jewelry, funneled the finances into her business, and there was no looking back.
Yeah. No.
It's an amazing story. I think the resilience too, is huge. And I think there's so many people who you never know what someone's gone through unless they tell you every aspect of their story, right? And so I think the resilience and resourcefulness was something else that I learned from my mom. It sounds like your mom was very resourceful.
Mm-hmm.
My mom had 5 of us kids. She had to be resourceful.
Yes.
So,
She didn't have a choice there.
Yeah. No, that is for sure.
Yeah,
no, I
absolutely.
Totally agree.
And I think resilience is also the cornerstone of the success of any business, especially a small business, because again, we don't have access to unlimited funds.
Right.
So, building that resiliency into your business, planning for any downturn, looking ahead and continuing to reinvent your offering.
Yeah.
I think that's extremely important because especially in technology, with artificial intelligence, now doing so much that we used to do, how can you still stay relevant in the consulting space, Linda? I think that's one of the main challenges that we are seeing.
I totally agree. Yeah.
So, that is where, the thinking out of the box, the human connection, that's where that comes into play.
Absolutely.
Totally agree with that. Well, kind of thinking about, reinventing and switching gears and staying relevant in the market, you decided that Step Up Consulting wasn't enough, and you decided to start Step Up Foods. So talk a little bit about Step Up Foods and what you're doing with that.
Absolutely. Thank you. Step Up Foods is it's my pet project. That's the best way I'd put it. As I was saying earlier, my background is in hospitality management. That's what my core education lies in. And I've just loved everything to do with food. I come from a family who loves food. As I was telling you, my grandma was this home-based cook. What I realized when I moved to the US was, my home country of India has so much diverse culinary options to offer. And I feel like, what we get here today en masse,
Right.
not the fine dining, the
Yeah.
restaurants, because those are just for, smaller groups.
True.
But
Yeah.
en masse, the food you get in grocery stores, frozen Indian meals, or
Mhm.
the Costco's and the Trader Joe's, they lack that diversity that I know
Mhm.
we have so much more to offer.
Right.
And that's what kind of led me to thinking about Step Up Foods. So the endeavor there is to bring, authentic Indian foods, but in a way that it would be appealing for the
Okay.
North American
Yeah.
market.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Indian food seems like it is really exploded, not just in the US, but when I was back in the UK, Indian food has exploded in Europe as well. Like, why? Why is Indian food so popular? Like, what do you think is driving that obsession with Indian food?
It's funny you mentioned the UK, because the first time I visited London, I remember calling my mom from there and I was like, I'm eating better Indian food here than I do in India. It was so crazy, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
love Indian food there. I think, number one, it's the diversity, because,
Okay.
India is made up of so many states, and you get so many regional Indian foods there. So you go up the north, and the food is more, dairy based, yogurt and milk and cream. It's sweeter.
Interesting.
Then you go
Yeah.
to the south, and it's coconut and it's more tangy,
Mhm.
and there's tamarind. So now again, you're eating Indian food, but you
Right.
see how different
Yeah, the
Absolutely.
it may
Yeah.
region
be. You know,
and yeah,
exactly. I mean,
it
it's
is
not a
so
burger is a
flavor.
burger is a burger. No, a curry is not a curry,
Yeah.
because it
Yeah.
could
Yeah.
be yogurt based or it could be coconut based, and there's, the
Interesting.
spices are different as well. Um, I think that is one thing which has made Indian food really popular.
Mhm.
In more recent
So
years, is,
flavorful.
people are definitely traveling more.
Yes, yeah.
They especially, we see the younger generation, they're spending more money on experiences and
Yes.
travel.
So true. Yeah.
And I think food is a big part. When we travel, you enjoy trying different foods from where
Right.
you go to. And then I think also, especially post COVID, we're more, you look at eating good food, but how is it good for you? And I
Yes.
think that's where Indian food comes in, because it's amusing to me. I follow a lot of food bloggers, and I hear a lot
Uh-huh.
of podcasts when I go for my walks, and they speak about turmeric and ginger
Yes.
and cardamom and cinnamon, and the health benefits. And I'm
Mhm.
like, hold on, this is all we do. This is all
We've been
we've been
doing
eating.
this, yeah,
This is
our
all
whole
we
Eating
know.
life.
Indian food. Yes.
Yeah. No, it is
Yes.
so
So,
true.
it's, and I'm like, well, that means we did pretty good. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that myth of, like, Indian food is oily and spicy, because what,
Right. Yeah.
home-based foods are not that, it's more
Right.
about, they let the flavors come through, but there are
Yeah.
a lot of
Yes.
healthy ingredients in there. And I think
Right.
people are realizing that, because, we don't need to make a smoothie to get our fix of turmeric and ginger. We just get it in our
Right.
food.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. And
No, I love that because you're absolutely right. And there is so much of it's like bottling it up into a pill or turning it into something else where what you're talking about is just the natural way of
yeah.
getting this benefit of this through just eating different, eating right. It's really it is kind of funny how we've overly complicated
then
food and eating
processed.
and
Yeah.
process. Yeah, oh yeah,
Yeah.
and the process. Yeah, exactly. So
Oh, yes. And also, we're seeing a lot of folks, in the Americas, looking at, going vegan,
yeah,
more
yes,
plant-based
yeah, a
foods.
lot of
And
plant
I
based.
think
Yep.
that's where Indian food also is, getting its sort of spot in the sun.
Yeah.
because we have so many vegan options, but they're delicious options. You don't even miss meat. You
Right.
get your
Right.
protein fix.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I love that.
and it's funny because Praneeth, my husband, is Orthodox, and we're
Okay.
going through Lent right now before
Yeah.
Pascha, and I'm Catholic, and so there's Easter for us. But Lent is so easy because we have so many vegan options
Right.
in Indian foods, with the lentils and the veggies,
Right.
and so I think that's where also Indian food has gained popularity
That makes a
in
lot of
Yeah.
recent
sense.
times.
I hadn't
Yeah.
thought about that from that
Yep.
perspective because there is a big move towards, vegan, vegetarian, plant-based, and so, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So,
And you're getting your
fascinating.
protein and you're getting your fiber
Yeah,
by
getting what
eating
you need.
your,
You're
Absolutely.
getting
yeah,
what you need, and it's
Yeah.
tasty because
Right, yeah, and
it's
it tastes good. 'Cause you're
it
right.
tastes
seriously, I
good.
love authentic Indian food. So if I wanted to get some of the step up food, how would I do that?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Well, you're always welcome over. We love hosting.
I'll see you
So
soon.
Christine is
just book that
always
ticket to Los
cooking. Yes,
Angeles,
Like, how
exactly. I
Cindy.
was like, Christine is
yeah,
always
yeah.
cooking. And her dishes are always beautiful. When she posts on social media, when I see her stuff, I'm like, it's always she's got such a beautiful presentation of her food. So
I'm
I'm
glad.
so excited to follow you
But
now.
we are, we represent a brand called Ferns Fines Foods, which are headquartered in Maharashtra, and they have ready to cook wet spice blends and pickles, and we are going to be launching that soon on Amazon. So
wonderful.
I'll definitely send you all the link. I'll send you on some
Please.
samples
Yeah,
when we are
please
ready
do.
for that. We
Yeah.
are representing another regional Indian brand called Chitle that sells savory Indian snacks and sweets.
Awesome.
Okay.
We already have those in Indian stores here in Los Angeles, and we are hoping to have them out soon in Ohio and Chicago in the Midwest area, and then hopefully
Fantastic.
expand throughout the US. Yeah.
Congratulations. Oh my
Thank
goodness.
you.
Absolutely. No, that's so cool. Well,
Yeah.
Christine, any advice you would give to maybe our young budding women out there who are thinking about, making the leap into entrepreneurship? What advice would you give them?
Um, I think, honestly, the most important part for me was getting out of my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's like you're putting yourself out there
Yeah.
because you're now, selling a product or selling a service. You have to go get out there. You have to reach out to people, request for help, um, you know, get some good mentors,
Yeah.
you know, take some courses on financial planning. It could be your
Good
even
advice. Yeah.
yeah, someone, your bank manager. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we bank with Chase, and they have some great. I know Wells Fargo does as well.
Uh-huh.
They do some learning programs for up and coming women entrepreneurs where
Oh,
and I found those extremely useful. Where they teach
yeah.
you financial planning and budgeting for a
Mm-hmm.
startup.
Right.
So I think the finances, of course. One thing is you're passionate about what you're offering, but at the end of the day, finance is the cornerstone of your business.
Yeah.
Right.
So keep your finances in order. Start using technology smartly. Social media. Get out there, market your product, look at what your competitors are offering. What is going to set you apart? What is your USP? I think
Right.
you need to, be very clear on what your USP is. One of the very good pieces of advice that I read in Richard Branson's book was always having your elevator pitch ready, because you
I like
never know when opportunity strikes,
Yeah.
and
So true.
you may just get a minute or two with somebody that could change the course
Yeah.
of your journey, and just always being ready, whether it's having a product in the bag, in
Yeah.
your handbag, or having a little handout, or just being, hey, I've got 2 minutes, tell me, Christine, what is it that Step Up does, and I'm ready, and I'll give it to you.
Yeah.
And finally, I would also say, taking calculated leaps of faith, because
I
you're
like
not
that.
going
Yeah.
to be successful if you don't go against the grain. So be
Right.
willing to take those calculated risks, and sometimes they could be uncalculated. We've been approached for really big consulting opportunities, and we've said yes, and then figured out how best we were going to deliver.
Right. I
But
like
if we
that.
didn't say yes, they would have gone to the next consulting firm.
That's true. That's true. But also knowing when to say no, right, Christine? Because I
Yes,
also know that
I
you
would
have said
agree.
no to projects when you're like, I know I can't successfully do this, and I'm not willing to jeopardize my organization or my really reputation in the market by taking on something that I know I'm not going to be able to be successful at doing. So
Linda, thank you for saying that, because you brought up a very good point. Is My mantra has always been, do not look for short-term gain. I mean, it
yeah,
depends
I
on
like
what you're
that.
in the market for. I mean, if you're in the
Sure.
market to just make a quick buck and move out, then more power to you. But
Right.
that's not the way I established my businesses.
Mhm.
So, and to that, there have been opportunities which have come, which we have known that we may not be able to deliver successfully on,
Mhm.
even though they might be profitable, and it takes a lot of courage to walk away,
That does.
but that helps you in the long run. A prospective customer appreciates your honesty and may actually come back when they have something appropriate for you.
Yeah,
Right.
I
Yes. No,
agree.
I totally agree. No, it makes a lot of sense. Well, I'd like to leave our listeners out there, especially our ladies, to really think about, listen to what Christine has shared today. Really, even as I look at you know, what Cyndi has done with her career as well, because it was just in 1988 that the Women's Business Ownership Act ensured that women can own and operate businesses without requiring a male co-signer. So I
Wow.
just want you to, when we think we haven't
I
come that
know.
far, I want us to remember that it hasn't been that many years ago that we couldn't do the amazing things that these ladies are doing in their lives and in their careers today. So,
We've got to stick with each other and, pay it forward.
yeah,
Totally agree.
Support your circle. Be willing to mentor others and help them. And it'll come back to you tenfold.
absolutely. I am a
Plus,
big
it's so
believer in that.
great to see other women be successful in their
Yes.
journey.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We can root
I
each
love
other
it.
on as we go. Yeah.
We
Yes.
can. Yep.
Yeah.
And when we build each other up and really carry each other forward, it makes it much easier too, right? Because then,
Others.
yeah, exactly. And we just keep the circle growing. So I love it.
Absolutely.
No, that's
This has
wonderful.
been so much fun, Christine. I've loved
Yeah,
Thank
I'm
you,
hearing.
so glad
Cindy
we
and
were
Linda.
able
This
to
this
get
was this
here.
was
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you
No,
for
we're
the
so glad to
opportunity. I had
oh,
so much fun.
absolutely. No, thank you. And we will put links to Step Up Consulting so you can get in touch. You can also reach Christine through LinkedIn as well, and we'll put her contact information out there, as well as we'll share information about Step Up Foods as well.
I'm going to
So
start following you. I want to see some of that beautiful food that you're
um,
making too, Christine.
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely. I'd
Yes.
love it.
Especially
Yeah.
during the holidays.
Oh
Christine
boy.
has got
Yes.
quite a presentation.
That's so
So
cool.
absolutely. We'll
Thank
have to
you.
make a road trip to LA so you can
Yes.
You
also
just
see
I was gonna
the
say you just
beautiful
have to come to
views.
LA now.
I'm
Yes.
hungry.
Absolutely.
Let's go.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well,
Uh,
thank you again, Christine. It was so great to have you on
Same
the
here.
show. And Cyndi, as always, it's great to see you. And
Thank you,
for all of
Linda.
our
You too.
listeners out there, we hope you enjoyed the show as much as we did. And we'll see you next time. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. This was great. Take
Bye.
care, ladies.
Thank
All
Bye
right.
you.
now.
Bye.
Thanks so much for joining us for this episode of the HR Her Resources podcast. We're so happy to have you with us on this journey. Music and production by Logan Misegadis of LJM Productions. We'd also like to thank our intern, Lauren Banas, for creating our logo and supporting our social media postings. If you'd like to connect with Logan or Lauren, you can find their information in the show notes. If you found value in our discussion and think someone else might as well, please follow, subscribe to our LinkedIn, and share with a friend. Until our next episode, please take care and continue to support one another.